the competitions that they had, including Mandriva. And this is one of the reasons I wasn't using Mandriva quite as much anymore.
But I mean, I found 804 rock solid. Still to this day, I still got a machine somewhere that's got 804 on it, and it was rock solid. There was no arguing. I find, recently with a few distros, nothing major, a few little issues which you have to resolve. I think I described one before, which was Emerald losing its Windows decorations every so often when I was playing the video file. That's been solved now. That was actually my fault. But
it's a very experimental package, and it has been around since like 2006 or I think 2007 actually. And all the time it was just like the type of thing you have to install yourself, maybe to compile, and then be kind of careful because you could lose your whole window management type component. You could blast all your window decorations if you do the wrong thing, I suppose.
I think what irritates me somewhat is that there's a lot of users which have this leaked attitude where they suggest that Ubuntu is just for new users, and people shy away from using the word Ubuntu. I mean, I've come across many Linux users over the years. Some brand new users, some very, very experienced with formidable knowledge, and both sets of people use Ubuntu. I don't think the Ubuntu distro dictates the level of Linux knowledge you have. And like I said before, and I've said it many times, if I'm deploying a distribution to a new user or to somebody that I'm putting my name to say somebody who's coming off Windows, I want to put it to something that I can trust. And I found, certainly my experience, is Ubuntu has always been a distro that I can trust. 804, like I said, I bring it up purely because it has a special place in my heart for getting me 100% Linux.
I found the other day, I think lots of people are pretty annoyed with Ubuntu because it's taking the trademark power away from Linux, and there is the brand recognition of Ubuntu compared to the thing it's actually made out of. And lots of people, they do try to correct people about the structure of the system because it leads to all kinds of things. And I'll give you an example I found yesterday in a site that's reasonably okay. It was talking about Ubuntu getting support for some piece of hardware, and it says this is only for Ubuntu. But it wasn't for Ubuntu, it was for Linux, and Ubuntu just takes it from Linux. So my remark, and I think some people didn't understand it was a joke, I just said, why is this Ubuntu OS? Is it better than Linux? Because the way it was written, the whole article is just trying to use the name Ubuntu to say Ubuntu's got this support, and it was Epson printers. I think it was some kind of driver for a printer from Epson. And what I just thought, people will have misconceptions about, they will think that Ubuntu is better because it's got those drivers, and they'll think, well, what about Mandriva? Well, it says Ubuntu, so obviously Mandriva is not going to work. So I just think it's important that we actually do emphasize that there is this bigger umbrella that's called, Linux or GNU/Linux, and these distributions are flavors of this thing, and if there is support for a certain driver, from a certain company in the form of a driver, we could just say, well, all the Linux distributions would have support for these printers. The misconceptions that we have lead to the point where if you go to Google and do a trend search, I think it's like trends.google or .com, something like that. I did the search. I was quite concerned about what was happening in terms of news being labeled Ubuntu instead of Linux, because I'm trying to find Linux news, and I use Google search for it too, and I cannot find so much Linux news anymore. And then I go to Ubuntu, and I'm saying everything is Ubuntu now, especially when it comes to desktop. And then I just found, I went to trends, and I suggest people do that if they're not so sure. Linux is still declining in terms of the volume of search is just pure, Linux. Of course, people not just search for Linux. Maybe they search for Ubuntu Linux, and maybe Linux drivers, and maybe Linux something. Maybe they don't know what Linux is. But even if you, I'd imagine some people will just search for Linux, for plain Linux. So the volume of search has declined to a quarter of what it used to be about 5-6 years ago. And I even found in sites that I run which contain the word Linux quite a lot in the titles, they don't get as many visits as before. And that's because people are looking for things like Android and Ubuntu. And they know why they look for Ubuntu, because they use Ubuntu, and they'll probably know they will find a Ubuntu forums thread or something that will give them a solution. Of course, this puts in a disadvantage every other distribution which tries to tell you how to install a webcam or how to install a certain package, because you'll search trying to actually find what package it is, but what you'll find maybe is Ubuntu forums if you know where to look. And we lose the unified branding of what it actually is. It leads to lots of trouble in the future, especially a digital loss of, if people don't know what Linux is anymore, and if Linux is just a component in a big system called Android, people will never find the old explanations of how this thing was developed and how they will not even find kernel.org to find the development history of what's now been put perhaps somewhere in the repository of Android, of Google. So,
well, that was so I did forget, Roy, I think, to give the date. Apparently its end of life will officially be on Thursday, May the 12th. 2011, obviously. So that's going to be the official end of life of Ubuntu 8.04. So long, Ubuntu. I'll raise a glass for the version 8.04 on that particular day. And
move to XP now.
Sorry,
XP still supported. I suppose they could move there.
when we're collecting our pension, Roy, I think XP will still be supported.
Yeah, it's style. But still in retro. You can see you can go past desktops and you see the screensaver with the promotional logos of Windows and the screen kind of bouncing around. So it's it's XP. They haven't bothered to get it exciting.
Well, I mean, like we said a few episodes ago, they're already showing, in inverted commas, leaks of Windows 8, and yet they still haven't.
I found out who was behind the leaks. I wasn't paying attention. One of them is this guy Rivera, who I think he runs one of the Windows sites. What's it called, WinActive or something, maybe? Or
all right.
And he's a friend of Da Costa, who's one of the boosters in Microsoft MVPs. The guy who runs around blogs and pastes the Microsoft press releases and basically harasses people who promote Linux and stuff. So he was one of them, and the other person whose name I saw there was Paul Thuot. How do you pronounce his surname?
Is it Thuot?
I tried to ask some people, and couldn't give me that. Anyway, so he's been a kind of an insider with Microsoft for ages now, since like bloody the 90s and stuff. So if this is true, that they're the ones who leaked the screenshots, it's just kind of like saying, your wife is just like, let a stranger inside the house, so therefore you have like a person breaking into your house, because, it's a leak, he leaked into your house. Well, if it's your wife doing that, it's, she's got the keys, she can do that. And these people work in tandem with Microsoft. They coordinate things like how to explain things and how to, where to link people, where to show people certain things. And they even spread FUD for Microsoft. They even say nasty things about Linux and Android when that suits them. But they try not to do so very much because I think it delegitimizes their presence and stuff, and they leave it to people like Rob Enderle and Microsoft Florian to do all these dirty kind of jobs and get all the anger out of the community. But yeah, I mean, leaks, they say it's leaks, and I think Gordon on the previous show, he was clarifying the thing turned out to have vanished.
Yes, that's what. Yeah, I understood it. It just disappeared.
Yeah, well, it never disappeared. So they kind of leak it out. People put it on their blogs, and I say, "Okay, job done. Okay, now we get copies in lots of places, and we kind of disappear."
Well, what we'll do, we'll stick on the subject of the good ship Microsoft for a few more minutes, and we'll have a look at the street side product that's being released by Microsoft. For those that don't know, think Google Street View is basically what Street Side is in a nutshell from Microsoft. And yet again, I think, like I've seen with previous products of Microsoft, it seems that Microsoft are playing catch up again. From what I've read on the net and various forums, it appears that not many people are buying into this great new Street View. And if you look at it a little bit closer, you see that the cracks already are starting to appear on this whole street side product, because according to Microsoft, and this is a quote from them to the BBC, "We are not setting out to record every street. We believe it is most valuable in urban centres where people want to find services." So basically what it's going to be then is a Google Street View without all the other side streets. And as I commented on my site, I believe it's another example of another watered-down product by Microsoft as it tries to catch up with already established and successful products from competitors.
Yeah, they have an issue with to justify to their shareholders having a certain number of servers to